Okay, now we're ready to start playing the game. Lineups are in, and Diane Chambers leads off. Throughout this demonstration on the score sheet, I'm using this yellow mouse cursor halo effect, which is not part of the spreadsheet, but just to add in for Windows to make it easier to follow the mouse cursor for the video. So I'm going to click in the center square up here in the first inning for Diane Chambers, and it brings up this pop-up window. So the first column, basically all different types of outs. The second column, various types of getting on base. And the third deals with various types of errors. So in this case, we have a ground out. So I'm going to click the ground out option and then click OK. And now it puts in a GO for ground out and it fills in the lower right cell there as red. And what does that mean? So here I'm going to click this help button here to kind of explain this. This brings up this, what I'm calling the score sheet batter block key, which the score sheet batter block would be this whole set of cells here for any given lineup position under any given inning. So it's this center result square, all these little squares around it, and then some border regions in addition for special things. So you can kind of see the squares around, the little squares around the big squares, kind of like the diamond in baseball, with the lower right being first base, upper right second base, upper left third base, and lower left home plate. So, and red indicates an out. So what that red cell in the lower right corner means is she was out at first base on the ground out, or got forced out. So that's what that means. So let's move on now to Norm. Norm gets up and leans into one and gets hit by the pitch. So find hit by pitch, click OK. You can see it indicates the hit by pitch, but now on first base cell it fills it in with green because now there's a runner on first base. So we have one on, one out. Sam Malone steps up, drills one up the gap, and legs out a triple and scores Norm. So we're going to mark the triple. We'll say OK. And we need him have Norm score. So we're going to make him score, we're going to click on the base he ended up at. So because he scored, we're going to click on home plate, which is that lower left cell. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to click that. You notice it doesn't turn green here, but it's actually clear, but it fills in the center square with blue background, and that indicates that runner scored. So that's good. Now we need to indicate that Sam got an RBI for knocking in Norm. So how do we do that? I'm going to go back to this cheat sheet again and find this cell right above the first base cell, which is the RBI cell. And down here in the tips, you'll notice it says click through any of the labeled cells to cycle through the options. So I'll show you what that means. So here in the RBIs, right above first base is the RBI cell. If I click once, it turns it to 1. I click it again, it's a 2, then a 3, then a 4, then it goes back to being blank. So that's an example of kind of cycling through all of its options. So I'm going to click it again, and then back to 1, which indicates you got 1 RBI on this triple. So, okay, now there's 1 out, 1 run in, and a guy on third base. So let's say Carla hits one deep to right, but not out of the park, and scores Sam with a sacrifice fly. So in the result window, we're going to choose SF or sacrifice fly. Okay. So here it knows a few things. So it automatically puts in 1 RBI because you clicked sacrifice fly, and it puts Carla being out at first base because she got out. Now we just need to indicate that Sam scored. So we're going to go up here and click home plate just like we did with Norm, and it'll turn that center blue. So now there's 2 runs in and 2 outs. Cliff Clavin's up. Let's say he strikes out to end the inning. So we could click OK, but we can also click this toggle end of inning, which is really like OK, but it's also the end of inning. So I'm going to click toggle end of inning, and you'll see it does a couple of things. So one, it puts in my strikeout. He's out at home because he never got to first. And it also puts in this red block border on the side and the bottom to indicate that was the end of the inning. And by doing that, it also computes the runs for the inning. You can see, so there were 2 runs scored, and it puts that down here on the scoreboard. So 2-0 top of the first. So now the Brady Bunch is up in the bottom of the first. I could scroll down here to their score sheet, but I could also then take the shortcut and click this jump to home score sheet. That's what I'm going to do. So it jumps down, but it isn't quite that helpful right now because there's this big blank area in the middle, which is used mainly for the pitching stats at the end of the game. But for right now, we don't need it. So what I'm going to do is over here on the left, there's this Show Hide Pitching Stats button. I'm going to click that. And it basically just hides all these rows that are only used for the pitching stats tables at the end of the game. So I'm going to do that, and now let's get on with the bottom of the first. So Cindy, let's say she leads off with a single. Click single. Okay. Bobby's up second. Let's say he gets a walk. He gets a walk. So he's on first, but it's still showing Cindy on first. That's because the spreadsheet isn't that intelligent about all the baseball rules. So how do we get him to second base, or her to second base? So remember, we'll just click the base that they end up on, which is, so here if we click second, the one time it turns green and it gets rid of the green square on first base. So this indicates Cindy's now on second base. So we got runners on first and second, no outs. Jan's up, and let's say she's going to bunt successfully. So right here, sacrifice, hit, bunt. Click that. Okay. So it shows her being out at first, and now we need to move these 2 runners up. So same thing. We click the base they end up on. It's third for Cindy and second for Bobby. Now Peter's up with 2 on and 1 out, and let's say he lines out to the third base and they double up Cindy for a double play. So that's right here, this line out double play. We'll click that. Let's say OK. So this shows line out LDP for that, but how do we mark Cindy being kind of out on the double play at third? So what we'll do is just, where did she get out? Third base. So if we just click this third base again, it goes from green to red, indicate an out. So now there are 3 outs, and what I forgot to do was click the end of inning when I chose the line out double play, but I can always change it. So I'm going to click back on Peter's, but I'm not going to change what he did. All I'm going to do here is click this toggle end of inning. So if I don't do anything else, you can see this bottom thing says other, which is always the default, but it says in parentheses, don't pick me except for end of inning, and that's what we're doing right now. We're just going to mark the end of inning, so we'll toggle that. Click it, it marks the end of inning, and you can see it fills in the 0 in the scorecard. So that's the basics. That's 1 inning in the books. Okay, that's the end of the first. Let's click the arrow to take the shortcut back up to the visiting team score sheet and do the second inning. So Rebecca leads off. Let's say hit it to the shortstop, and it goes through Bobby's legs. So we want to error on the shortstop here. So over in the third column are the errors. E6 for the shortstop. This is a 1 base error, and by default for a shortstop, that's what it chooses. So we can leave the error type alone. Just click OK. So it marks E6 for the shortstop error and puts the runner at first base. Woody's up next. Say he gets a hold of one and knocks it out of the park. So we go with home run. Okay. So with the home run, it automatically scores the run. But now we need to set the RBIs. So if you remember, the RBIs are in the square right above first base. So we'll do that. We're going to click 1 and 2 because 2 runners scored. And Rebecca, we need to score. So we click over here on the home plate for her. And you can see here it does 2 things. it colors this in because she scored, but it doesn't color it in blue and colors it in gray because it knows that she got on an error, so this is likely an unearned run, or maybe it's always an unearned run. So that's why it's gray. And it also indicates that with this cell right here to the left of first base. So I'll bring up this cheat sheet one more time. You can see right to the left of first is the unearned run cell. So this is how you can change a run from earned to unearned by clicking this cell. But it automatically selected it here because of the error situation. All right, Coach is up next. He's dangerous. They intentionally walk him. So choose that. Now Frazier's up. Let's say he grounds out into a double play. So in the first column, there's a ground out double play option. Click that. Okay. So it puts him out at first, but it doesn't necessarily know who got out. So we're going to mark Coach was out at second. So how do we do that? So we're going to click once on second base. It's going to put it green. We click it again. It makes it red. And that indicates he was out at second base. So that's how we mark the double play. And then Diane Chambers up. Let's say she strikes out and ends the inning. So strikeout. It's the end of the inning. So we'll click the blue button. End of inning. Updates the scoreboard. We're good for the top of the second. Let's jump down to the bottom of the second. Where we have Alice leading off. Rips one up the middle for a single. Greg batting next. Let's say he grounds it to short and they force out Alice at second, but they don't finish a double play. So that's a case of the fielder's choice. So we bring up the window, and the second column is fielder's choice. FC. Okay, so it puts Greg at first base, but you can see we have to fix the scoring for Alice because she was forced out at second. So similarly, we'll click second base once to make it green and twice to make it red to indicate that she was out at second base. All right, now there's one on and a guy on first. Mr. Brady's up. Let's say he rips one to center, up the gap, and for a double, but let's say the throw into second's horrible and he gets to third base on a throwing error. So we have a double plus a one base error on the center fielder. So let's figure out how we're going to do that. So in the second column, the last three are these hit plus error scenarios. So this is double plus an error. So click double plus error. But now we have a little extra work to do. We need to indicate there's an error on the center fielder. So we're going to, over here, we'll make E8. And because this was only a one base error, when you click the outfield positions, it defaults to 2. So we need to change this to a 1 for a one base error. So we have double plus error as a hit, an error on the center fielder, and it was only a one base error. If that's all good, you click OK. So it fills this in with double plus E8 for center field and puts the runner on third base. As the official score, I'm going to say that Greg did score, but he wouldn't have scored on the double. So it's going to be, he scored on the bad throw. So it's an unearned run. So we click once on home, it makes it blue. But now we want to make it unearned. So we looked at this once, but remember the unearned indicator is to the left of the first base cell, right here. So to the left of the first base cell, we click it once, it puts a UE for unearned, and it changes this color from blue to gray, indicating that that was an unearned run. Next up, Mrs. Brady, say she draws a walk. Okay, walk. Now, in a real surprise move, let's say she tries and successfully steals second base. How does that work? So we're going to bring up this scoring cheat sheet once again, and next to second and third and home, there is a cell dedicated for the result of attempting to steal a base. So you can see right up here to the left of second, it says second base, colon, and SB for stolen base and caught stealing. And similarly, there's one for next to underneath third base and to the right of home plate. So in our case, this is the cell we're interested in because this is Brady, steal second base. So we're going to click it once. And it puts an SB because it was a stolen base and marks her at second. If she would have been thrown out, we could click it again and it's caught stealing and puts it red. Click it again, it blanks it out. We have to blank this out, but I'll click it again and it cycles back to stolen base. Run runs at second base. That's what we want. Anyway, next up is Marsha. Let's say she flies out, but no runner scores. And to finish the inning, let's say Cindy gets up and pops out. Mark the end of inning. They score once. It puts it up here on the scoreboard. 2 innings in the books. It's 4-1 cheers over the Brady bunch.